Good afternoon, Sergeants. My name is Sergeant Adams, and today I'll be giving you an information brief on the foundations of Army leadership. The classification for this briefing is unclassified. The purpose of this brief is to inform my audience on the types of foundations of Army leadership. The foundations of Army leadership are the basic fundamentals of how the Army describes what a leader should be. Foundations commonly known are the Army values, Army operations, and military discipline. The three main foundations written in Doctrine ADP 6-22 are character, presence, and leader intellect. The first foundation of Army values is character. Character is a leader's true nature, guided by their conscience, which affects their actions. Examples of character are Army values, empathy, warrior ethos, discipline, and humility. Army values, we've all been taught the Army values since day one in the Army. It's the foundation of expectations for all soldiers, especially leaders, to make sound decisions. There's 7 Army values, including loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The next part of character is empathy. Empathy is defined as a trait shown by a leader to make him able to relate to other people's situations. This allows leaders to communicate better with soldiers and their families. This could be important if a soldier's having issues. A leader can relate to that situation and make decisions based off of empathy. Warrior ethos is next. Represents doing what's right and having commitment to the Army and the team. And then there's discipline. Discipline is having self-control and setting an example for subordinates. Discipline comes down to being a leader that soldiers want to look up to and doing the right things. Humility. Humility is defined as the absence of arrogance. Leaders not perfect, and they can't be perfect, but they could always strive to be better. That could be better at what they do and set a better example for their soldiers. The second foundation is presence. Presence, it sounds like being in the right place, in the right time, in the right uniform, but it's more than that. Presence describes how a leader is viewed by their subordinates based on their actions. The first category of presence is military and professional bearing. Looking and acting professional, having courtesy, and having a professional tone, that's military and professional bearing. So it's having a clean uniform, having professional courtesy, and talking to others how you want to be talked to. Fitness is another thing that goes along with presence, and that's not only just for PT standards, but the reason that we have PT standards, it comes down to being able to stay safe and watch out for your battle buddies during combat operations. But PT is not the only part of fitness. There's also mental and health fitness. That's making sure soldiers are motivated, healthy, and they're just able to complete their duties. Confidence. Confidence is the ability to make decisions and believe in them, whatever circumstances the leader's facing. Confidence is contagious, so a leader that's confident, that translates to his subordinates, and in turn they become confident in making good, solid decisions. Resilience, that's another step in leader presence. That allows leaders to bounce back from hardships, to grow from experiences, whether they're bad or good, and to become better soldiers based on what they learned. And by mentoring their soldiers, they can use those experiences to, so that they might not make the same mistakes. The third foundation for an Army leader is leader intellect. That's it's having mental agility, thinking flexibly, which could also be known as critical thinking. Leaders need to make tough decisions during difficult situations or change. So a difficult situation, a leader just has to be on his toes and be able to make those good critical decisions when it matters. And same with change. If there's change going on in the unit, it's being able to push through that and make the right decisions that are good for everybody. That's also using multiple points of view and making the best decision for the team. Sound judgment is the next step of leader intellect, and that's making decisions based on experiences or what the situation happens to be, and not using emotion or bringing emotion into making those. Trial and error goes with that. And that's learning from failures and being able to mentor soldiers based on what you've learned from your failures so that they can make sound judgment. That's just making the best out of a bad situation. Innovation, that's the next step for leader intellect. That's problem solving and being able to introduce new ideas. You create those by having original thoughts based on prior experiences. So as a leader, that comes from what you've learned in the past, what your mentors have taught you, and what you can pass on to newer soldiers so that they can make those thoughts when they need to. It's taking input from mentors and also taking input from subordinates, because they might have ideas that you haven't thought of to create the right ideas. Interpersonal tact, that's another step of intellect, and that's how a leader interacts with others. It's important to know that subordinates are all different, and many require different ways of communication versus talking to the same people the same way. That might not work. That goes along with understanding diversity, and just because people are thrown in from different areas, you have to see them for the potential that they could bring to the table, and use interpersonal tact when dealing with those situations. Expertise, that's the last step of leader intellect. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's skill developed from experience, training, and education. Leaders need to set an example using their own tactical, technical, and joint knowledge. And they need to be able to teach their subordinates so that they can be leaders and teach someone else one day. So leading from the front and just having that expertise to mentor. The foundations of Army leadership are pretty much the base level of what it takes to be a leader in the Army. That includes the Army values and just doing what's right every day. You can't build off of, you can't build any leadership models without starting at the foundations. I talked about presence. Presence is more than just being there, but setting an example for subordinates and leading from the front in all aspects. So the Army values were character, and that was presence. Intellect, that's critical thinking, mental agility, interpersonal tact, and expertise. These are all used to make tough decisions and to do what's best for the unit and for the Army. This concludes my briefs. Are there any questions? I have a couple of questions for the audience. What foundation includes the Army values, and why is it an important trait for a leader to have? And then, why do you think resiliency is a trait of presence and not of character?